this. Oh, hey, how can I help you? Yes, I'm Bruce from the DVP. What's the DVP? It's the Dumb Video Police. Can't you tell from my badge and my kooky hard hat and my dark glasses? You look like one of the village people. Silence! Oh, I didn't hear you pull up. Well, I'm on my electric scooter today. I'm trying to catch perps. Wow. Well, how can I help you? Okay, that last video you put up on YouTube, that's what we officially call a dumb video. It wasn't that dumb. Look, it was dumb. And I'm afraid I'm going to have to cite you for it. Cite me? Yes, cite you for putting up a dumb video. We're doing that now. People lose valuable brain cells watching dumb videos, so you have to pay the price. It wasn't that dumb. Look, yes it was. It was a 25-minute video on how to install a clutch cover. I mean, man, what were you thinking? Okay, what's the fine? Yes, I'm afraid it's quite severe. You're going to have to put up a pithy, funny intro to your next video, and you better not make it dumb, or else. Or else what? Well, in that case, I'm going to have to come back with reinforcements and whip you with a wet noodle. That actually sounds kind of fun. Knock it off. Now consider yourself cited, and stop putting up dumb videos, or the next intro we'll make you do will be a musical number. Look, I think you need to leave now. My job is done. But hey, can I ask a favor? The battery in my scooter is dead. Can I borrow an extension cord? Alright, there you are. Now I'm not going to show you the detail on clocking the engine as far as the timing marks go, because I showed you that in video 2. You know, pretty good, couple of good shots of that. So I'm just going to stick you here and let you see it from there. I'm going to bring you up. I'm going to do number. Remember, I'm going to refresh your memory on the cylinder orientation again. Okay. What is it? This is 2, and that's 4. And up here is 3, and that's 1. So this is forward. Of course, this is the right side of the bike here, the engine. So this is the front cylinder. So again, 2, 4, 1, 3. All right, so we're going to do cylinder 2 first, because it just happens to be where I have the light pointed. And the light is a good thing. I'm going to bring you up a little bit. Now, surface data says we check the clearance between the rocker arm and the cam itself, the cam lobe. So it's on the opposite side of the stem and nut. So we're going to have to come up this way at it. I'll be on the other side of the bike to do that, but right now I have to clock it. So watch the intake valves in particular, these guys right here, okay? The rockers for them. We're going to wait till they open, and then we're going to wait till they close, and then we're going to look at the timing mark for number 1. That's how I do every single one of these. I do them in cylinder to cylinder. I think I explained number 2, this video number 2, that is that some service data will say clock it on top dead center on cylinder 2, and then you can do the intake on number 2 and the exhaust on number 2, and then the intake on number 4 or number 1, you know, something like that. I always stick to the same cylinder as long as it's at top dead center. Can't go wrong. That's what we're going to do. This motor gets clocked clockwise by hand. There's the intake valves opening on number 2. And you're going to hear a little clicking and stuff here, just normal. Now they just close. So intake valves on number 2 are close. Oh, sucks getting old. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring it up to 2T, not F, because F is fire for timing. T is top dead center. F is before T. Oh, because you can check timing. You can't adjust it, but you can check it. So with a timing light. You know, it ain't like a 318 small block, you know, where you can get in there and twist the distributor up. It is what it is based on the, you know, I guess the cam positioning sensor here, talking to the IC unit and the, you know, the pulse generation off the pulse coils, blah blah blah. So we want 5 thou clearance. These should be right because I did them I did this one when it was on the bike. Hello, I'm a feeler gauge. All right, so that feels pretty good. Let's try 6 and see if it goes in. And 6 will go in, but really tight. So we'll have to adjust that one. And 6 will not go in on the next one. Now how I catalog these is I'll do, like for example, this number 2. So this is number 2 left and number 2 right, because it's the left side of the motor. So number 2 left seems to be a little on the slightly on the loose side. I mean, it's probably close enough, but I'll you know, we got it out. Why not just do them right? On the exhaust side down here, do the same thing. Where is it? Here it is. Oh, stop turning. There we go. So on this one, we want to go this way because it's the opposite of the stem and nut. This is what I say, 7. Yeah. That's a good feel in 7 also. I bet you 8 is absolutely not going to fit into those because it is a good feel. I can't remember if I adjusted the intakes. I know I adjusted the exhaust on this one. This is the cylinder that was a little low. 8 won't go. So we're good on the exhaust on number 2. We just have 1 to deal with on number 2 here, which is the intake, the left intake valve. Now they make a special tool to do this. I don't know. It's kind of a thing where you put it over the nut and it's got a center piece that you can turn the screwdriver, and then you snug it down while you're holding that center piece, and it'll prevent the stem from turning independently, or with the, I should say, prevents it from turning and remains independent from the actual nut. But we're going to do it the old school way and just stick a feeler gauge in there. Well, actually, probably won't do it that way. Well, maybe we will. There's a couple different ways you can do this. Some guys will put a feeler gauge in and then adjust it. We'll probably do that, but I already know where it's at. I already know it's a little bit on the loose side. So I could probably do this by feel, to be honest with you. If I loosened that up and turned it a tiny bit and tightened it back down, I bet it'd be just right. But I've done enough of these things. But I'm just going to go ahead and put the 5 in there. You know, it's not a bad feel. It's just a little bit on the loose side. We'll go ahead and put the feeler gauge in and leave it there, and then take care of Sir Barks a lot, and then we'll come back and we'll readjust this one so it's perfect. All right, we are right here. So can you see? Yes. All right, so I like to use this particular husky one. That's husky. I'm not fat. I'm husky. Wrench. There goes my light. Of course. Jeez. We'll turn the. We'll just turn it about like right there. We'll try to do some feel. If you're putting weight down on this thing, it can skew that. So if you're pushing down on it while you're testing it, you're actually, you're actually screwing it up. Because remember, there is a little space between the valve. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. There is a little space between those. So if you're pushing down on it, you're taking up that space. You're pushing a little bit less space up between the rocker and the cam. So we're just going to kind of move it around until it just starts to grab a little bit better than it did. Sometimes you have to calculate in a little pull-up of that stem when you tighten it up as well. So I usually go just a tiny, tiny bit more. Then we'll hold her in place. Hold this. Still. Snug it. A little bit tighter. Alright. That's a pretty good feel on that 5. I do have a 5. Yes, good. Maybe a little tighter than I want it, so we're going to redo that. Feels about right. Okay. Now we'll send her home, at least really close. Once you get it pretty tight, you can tighten it independent of your screwdriver here. It ain't going to go anywhere. So now we'll send it home. Now there is a torque spec on these two, but I have stripped these out before. I got to be honest with you. Not on this motor, but the smaller ones. Trying to do a torque spec. I said to myself, I said, self, I'm never doing that again. I'm doing this by hand, by feel. That ain't going anywhere, trust me. Feel it again. 5, that feels good. Feels good. Let's check them both again with a 6 just to make sure. And a 6 will not go. And a 6 won't go. So those are perfect now. So we'll double check both of them actually while we're here, tightness wise. Because I was into these ones before. And I'll do the, I'll check the exhaust ones tightness off camera, because that's, that's didn't need adjusting, but I did adjust it once before in video 2. So that's all there is to it. Now we're on top dead center in this cylinder. I do the others, and it's the same deal, just rinse and repeat. So what we'll do at this point is, now that you've seen this one, and you get a really good idea how this is set up, with, independent rockers for each valve. See, one there, so the inner and outer. Let's go take a look at that VF750, and I'm going to go over some of the information in case you have one of those that you might find interesting and necessary to learn and know. Know it and learn it. Alright folks, we're out in the shed where I sleep when the wife is pissed. Just kidding. We're going to take a look at this VF750. Now, first things first, these motors are incredibly similar and just as dissimilar. As you can see, we have a cam chain drive for the cams as opposed to the gear drive on those early VFRs. Overall, it's pretty much the same looking block. This is a 180-degree crank though, whereas the VFR that I have is a 360. It's a 4-channel, the ICU or IC unit, the integrated circuitry ignition box, whereas this one is 2-channel, which is why I run those coil over plug units. There's just 2 of them, and it's a wasted spark, whereas on the VFR it's not. It has 4 coils. Alright, so we're going to focus here, our peepers, on number 4. Alright, and as you can see, you still have stem and nut, but you don't have 2 separate rockers. You have one rocker for both cylinders. So this cam is doing a lot of work here. It's pushing down 2 valves instead of 1, and those springs are actually pretty strong on the early VFs. And the reason why I bring this up is if you're working on one of these and you take the head cover off and the cams don't look like this and they're all pitted up, and unfortunately I don't have another one. I threw the only other cam I had that was pitted up out. It was just laying around. Then this is fine, but if you have one when it's really pitted up, you're going to have to replace the cams. There's just no way around it. Now, in this particular engine, I just did it as a rebuild project. I'd never run it. I don't even know if it will run. It probably will. But I had to replace one of the cams because it was pitted. I don't remember which one. So on this one, Honda wants you to check your clearance between the stem itself and the top of the valve. So it's not too hard to do because when you are in top dead center, these valves are all the way up, of course, and you can kind of reach in with a bent feeler gauge and get it in there pretty evenly. There's a couple of different ways you can do it, which is a little sneaky. Actually, one main way that's kind of a sneaky way to do it, and that is you can actually use the main center contact point of the rocker arm in relationship to the cam to do this. It's a little trick. I think it's the same 5 7/7 clearance on this between the intake and exhaust, like on this bike, this engine to the other one. We are on the exhaust valve right now, so it would be 7. So if you're going to do this, what you can do, you can put a feeler gauge in between the cam itself and the rocker. And what you do is, if it's a 7/1000 clearance, you choose a 5/1000 feeler gauge and put it in there. And then you adjust each one of these very carefully till they touch the valves. So they'll be touching. There'll be 0 clearance up here. And then you can pick up that clearance in one spot and get these pretty even. Because the problem with these are, and this is kind of an early Honda thing that turned out to be, and I'll explain how I know this, but I'm going to give you the reference for it. It turned out to be kind of a political thing with Honda, allegedly, back in the early 80s. And there was a blame game. Because some of these early V4s did have some top-end cam issues, and they blamed it on the dealers not setting these up right. What they said was you needed to use 2 feeler gauges, one in each valve, and set these up, identical, but with 2 feeler gauges. So you'd have the clearance, you'd have it set rather, clocked properly, and you would definitely check the clearance here, but with 2 feeler gauges. But it's really, really hard to get that accurate. The most accurate way to do it is to put 1 feeler gauge down in here, touch off with these guys, and then just tighten them up. And then you can just pull your feeler gauge out once both of these equal that 5/1000 rather on an exhaust, and this will give you 7/1000 right there. So it has to do with the fact that you have a contact point down here, and then you have an arm that's extending out, and so there's a difference in that hypotenuse of a triangle kind of thing, if that's the right description for it. And so if you were going to triangulate this between this, and that, you have a distance between the center line of this and where these touch off up here. So if you put 5/1000 up here, you have 7/1000 here. And so it does work. I set my valves on the Magna, on the sidecar rig this way. This is the same motor. This is an 83. I'll show you another difference between the 83 and 82s, which 82 is the first year here in a second. But this is one way you can do it. You can set the clearances pretty easy that way. But the early V4s with cam issues, again, it depends on where you read it, were sometimes overstated by the MOCO, by the mothership, and blamed on dealers for maladjustment. And then, of course, the dealers turned around and said they're peanut butter cams. And I think a little bit of both is correct. These cams were only case hardened on the early ones, and that could easily wear off. And as soon as you get one of these two surfaces that start to break down, whether it's the cam or the the rocker arm itself, they start to just take each other out. So it's just something to keep in mind. And I just kind of wanted to show you the difference between this V4, which is in 82, and in an 86 VFR. It's only 4 years difference, but considerable and significant difference in the engineering between the two of them. Now I'll tell you something else about the 82 V4 here. It's going to be a little difficult to get in here to show you exactly, but I'm going to try my best. On the 1982 cams only, if you had to take them out to replace them or do some tensioner work or whatever, the timing on these cams in the 1982 VF750, the Magna and the Sabre, is completely different from the following years, in particular 82 to 83. Well, this generation will only really be the 82, 83. I don't remember if it was an 84 because then the tariff busting bikes went to 700. I don't know if it's the same. But this is this is an 83, but mine's the first year, the 82. And the difference that I wanted to highlight was on an 82, you see that mark right there, which is a timing mark. It just so happens it's almost flush with the cover. On an 82, you do not put this timing mark flush with the cover. So in other words, one pointed up this way and the other one pointed up down that way. These actually go on a 45-degree angle off of the plane or the flat, surface of the head. Don't ask me why Honda did it that way, but that's what they did. So naturally, I'm looking at this motor from the side, kind of almost in the same position it would be if it was mounted, maybe slightly lower on the front. This is the front cylinders, of course, 2 and 4. And so that mark there, when it is properly timed on 82, will be exactly 45 degrees off of the top surface. And Honda has some sort of a convoluted methodology and instructions in their service manual for the 82 that says you cut a little template out from a piece of paper, and you actually have to take the actual, you take the gear off of the cam, and then you lay it down and you put this template on and you make a mark, and that's your 45 degrees. So I'm like, what? There's actually a much easier way to do it. And what that involves is all you really have to do is figure out, if just count the number of teeth on a gear, total number of teeth. If you have a cam out, it's easy to do. So you make a mark, count the total number of teeth. Divide that number by 4. So to set this timing up then would be you take 1/4 of the total number of teeth, and again, assuming you have the cam out, which you most likely will if you're going to be going in here doing some work, and you just get the total number of teeth. And you set this up when you're starting to line everything up for timing. If the crank is on top dead center, for example, for that particular cylinder you're on, and I don't honestly remember the service manual said to put it on when you're doing cam timing on each individual cylinder banks. But what you end up doing is you run this up to here and start moving this around, and all you have to do is line it up to your mark that you made, which was 1/4 of the teeth down that way, because remember, this has got to be pointed up this way. So it's pretty easy to do. That's how I did it on the other bike, as I said. And you don't need to do any convoluted stencils or anything like that and take this gear off the cam itself to do it. It's unnecessary completely. So that's only for the 82. So again, 45-degree angle on both of these cams. So the intake cam here would be up this way, and the exhaust cam would be down that way. Only on 82. On this 83 motor with 83 cams, and I honestly don't know a way to tell a difference, so I don't know if there's a numbering system on them or whatever, they go flush with the surface. They corrected that, I guess, for lack of a better term, and you can certainly take 83 cams and put them an 82 motor. That's why I'm keeping this motor around, basically. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to use it for, to rob parts off for my Magna. It's going to be a parts donor, really. And as you can see, I already stole the head covers off it because I had these head covers vapor blasted. But yeah, so that's a significant difference in setting up a first year to like from an 82 to an 83. And I kind of just wanted to bring that to your attention. In case you're working on one of these, especially in 82. Alright, so that's it. Another dumb video. 2 in 1 day. Who would have thunk? Yeah, so I think knowing a lot about the older V4s, the first generation of the V4s, consumer level, as far as like the 82 and 83 Magnas and Sabres and so forth, I think it's important when you're dealing with these newer or next generation ones, as far as even the redesigned ones. They're very similar, as I said earlier, but also very different. But the concept's the same. So I'm really happy that I got the experience I have on the Magna I have right now, doing all that different work I've done on it, which brings me to hopefully getting this one done, and it actually runs and runs well, which you shall see if you subscribe and ring the bell and like the video, and then you get notified when I put that up. So until next time, as always, don't just repair, restore. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video.